हाय एवरीबॉडी, आप सभी को मेरा सादर जय जिनेंद्र। तो लेट्स अंडरस्टैंड द इम्पोर्टेंस ऑफ इन्वेस्टिंग ऑन दिस वीकेंड, राइट? सो दिस कुड बी अ वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग बेस फॉर यू टू गेट स्टार्टेड विथ योर इन्वेस्टिंग जर्नी। ठीक है, सो विदाउट वेस्टिंग मच टाइम, लेट्स गेट स्टार्टेड विथ आवर टुडेज वीडियो। सो लेट्स गेट स्टार्टेड। So as you can see, today we are going to discuss why should one invest in the market, right? Now, before doing anything, if you know the why, the actions will automatically follow. Correct? So this is very simple, right? So in order to start investing, one should know why should one basically invest, right? What is the basic purpose of investing? So let's get started and move ahead. Now, the first purpose of investing is to beat inflation. Inflation का मतलब क्या है? Basically, what is inflation? Inflation is basically a general increase in prices and fall in the purchasing value of money. So let us understand this in a very simple language. Let's say today you go to a shop, okay, a kirana shop, and you tell him, I want to buy 1 kg of rice. Correct. So you give him 100 rupees and he would give you 1 kg of rice. Correct. Let's take it 1 year forward. Again, you go to the same shop and you give him 100 rupees. But this time around, when you give him 100 rupees, in return, he would give you only, let's say, 500 gram, half a kg only. Now, why did this happen? Well, this is nothing but an increase in the value of the thing which you want to buy and decrease in the value of your purchasing power. For example, simply what has happened? The price of rice has increased. Rice की जो price है वो बढ़ गई है, ठीक है? So the price of rice has increased, and what has happened? The value of money has decreased. So पहले आप 100 रुपए के अंदर 1 किलो राइस खरीद पा रहे थे, लेकिन अब क्या हुआ है? राइस के भाव बढ़ गए हैं. What has happened? The price of rice has increased and the value of money has automatically decreased, because previously for rupees 100 you were able to buy 1 kg of rice, but now you can only buy half a kg of rice. Correct? This is what it means. This is what is inflation, right? So let's move forward. I hope you've understood the meaning of inflation. Now let's also understand that what would happen if you don't invest, right? What would happen if you don't invest? Let's take this case. Suppose you earn 30,000 per month, okay? And आपका महीने का expenses 20,000. So you're earning 30,000. You are also going to spend something which is around 20,000 each month. And let's say you are able to save 10,000 each month. Correct. Assuming a few things, that every year your salary is going to increase by a 10%. Right? Every year I'm saying, not every month. Right? And the cost of living, that is inflation. जो हमने इन्फ्लेशन देखा राइस के अंदर, जहां राइस के भाव 100 रुपीज पर केजी से हो गए कितने, काफी ज्यादा हो गए 2000 रुपीज पर केजी. In that case, here we are assuming that the cost of living or inflation is 7% per annum. Assuming that you are 30 years old and you want to retire at 50 years, that means you have about 20 years of your working age, right? So we are keeping other expenses like educational expenses, the marriage expenses, the medical expenses, all as constant. We are not changing them, assuming that they are going to be the same. Correct. So let's move forward. Let's see how the picture will pan out after a period of 20 good years. Now, this is just a reference table which I have shown over here. Let's say your yearly income, as discussed, is 3,60,000. That is 30,000 per month. And if you calculate it for the year, you have 10% आपका जो income है वो बढ़ रहा है every year. Correct? For the next 20 years. And similarly, your expenses are also increasing by a good 7%. Can you see over here? Right. So your expenses on a yearly basis are increasing by 7% as the inflation is increasing by 7%. And what we have done is we have tried to just retain the cash. हमने इस cash को invest नहीं किया है. हम ये समझ रहे हैं कि हमारी जो भी saving है हम उसको अपने पास रख रहे हैं, उसको हम invest नहीं कर रहे हैं. Clear? तो यहाँ पे जैसा कि आप देख सकते हो, if 3,60,000 was your income and your expense was 2,40,000, the cash retained is how much? 1,20,000. Correct. So इस तरह आप cash retain कर रहे हो every year. ठीक है. So if you see, even your cash retained is increasing by 7%. We are assuming that your expense is increasing by 7% fixed. This is only for the purpose of explanation. But if you ask me right now, the expenses are increasing at an exponentially higher rate, right? So as you can see, after a period of 20 years, you are able to retain 1 crore 7,80,000. Correct. Now let us also understand how long can one survive with this cash after the retirement. Well, if you were to take the increment in your expenses at just 7% per annum, you would be able to survive only 10 years ahead of your retirement. Right? Let's go forward and let's understand this. Let's analyze this in detail. इसको हम और तकनीकी में समझेंगे और गहराई में समझते हैं. ठीक है? So let us understand this. So if we just keep our surplus cash without investing it anywhere, we can survive only 10 years after the retirement. And here we are not even talking about any extra expenses or emergency. So जो भी extra expense होते हैं, जैसे medical emergency हो सकती है, it could be marriage, it could be education. We are not considering anything, right? Education of your children या जो भी एक emergency expense आता है, हम उसको तो calculate ही नहीं कर रहे. हम basically एक 7% increment ही calculate कर रहे हैं. So the question is, how are you planning to survive after 10 years? Correct. So I think I made our point pretty much clear that why investing is not just a necessity, but it is now a mandatory requirement. Correct. Let's go forward and see what would happen if you start investing, right? What will be the investment scenario? Let's say you invest your retained cash in an index fund. Okay. Index fund का मतलब क्या हो गया? आपने स्टॉक मार्केट में निफ्टी में निवेश किया. ठीक है ना? अगर आप सिर्फ निफ्टी में निवेश कर रहे हो, and let's expect you get 12% return per annum. How much return? 12% return per annum. तो क्या होगा 20 साल के बाद? Now you will realize that you're not only going to beat the inflation, because inflation 7% से बढ़ेगा और आपका जो return है वो 12% से बढ़ रहा है. So obviously you're going to be beating the inflation. Now, if you were to do the same calculation, if you did not save, you were basically retaining 1 crore 7 lakh. However, now that you're going to be saving it, right, and investing it, you're going to be able to grow it to about 2 crore 15 lakh. Now that's a massive jump, right? Almost more than double. Correct. So that's a massive jump. So I hope you have got it. And this is actually the power of compounding and investing. So what you're basically doing now is that आपने जो भी यहाँ पे कैश रिटेन किया, ठीक है, 1,20,000, 1,40,000, 1,60,000, सो नाउ आप इसको इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हो एक इंडेक्स फंड में. अब ये जो आपका कैश है, ये आपको दे रहा है रिटर्न्स ऑन. अब ये जो कैश है जिसको आप रिटेन कर रहे हो और इन्वेस्ट भी कर रहे हो, अब आपको इस रिटेन कैश के ऊपर भी रिटर्न्स मिलेंगे. इसकी वजह से आपका जो रिटेन अमाउंट 1 करोड़ 7 लाख था, which now stands at 2.5 crore if you invest in an index fund, right, which will give you a return, an average return of 12%. Correct. So I hope you've understood why you should be investing your hard-earned money and not keep it idle. So let us now conclude our learning as to why should one be investing. Hence, after knowing everything, the foremost intention of investing is to survive the inflation. Even though your income may rise, correct? But along with your income, remember the inflation and the personal expenses are growing at an exponentially high rate, correct? And we have not considered a lot of other expenses, such as, our luxurious expenses, which we usually often tend to do, which is basically traveling, right? And these are also some other expenses like education expenses, marriage, or any unforeseen expense, right? As you know, we are now shifting towards consumer economy, right? Where the consumers are spending a lot through EMI, through other leverage credits, which you are getting easily, right? So remember one thing, inflation is increasing. Further, your personal desire to spend more is also increasing. And henceforth, it is more than important that you invest your hard-earned money, right? To create that extra alpha in order to beat the inflation. So now that we have understood that it is very, very important to invest, let us now understand where to invest. Because अगर आप देखोगे तो आपके साथ काफी सारे options हैं, आपके पास काफी options है. We have vast diversified options for investing, right? If you look at fixed deposits, government schemes, mutual funds, equity, bonds, gold, real estate, and the list goes on, right? So let us understand a few of them so that you understand the different options which are available to you. And once you understand all the options, and then as per your risk appetite, as per your need, you can always get started with a very, very small amount, right? Let us now get started with the very first investment option, which is फिक्स्ड इनकम इंस्ट्रूमेंट. फिक्स्ड इनकम इंस्ट्रूमेंट का मतलब बहुत सिंपल है. आप जब फिक्स्ड इनकम इंस्ट्रूमेंट में निवेश करते हो तो आपको एक फिक्स्ड अमाउंट का रिटर्न मिलता है until the period of the tenure of the investment, and उस पीरियड के बाद आपको आपका प्रिंसिपल अमाउंट मिलता है. इसको हम काफी सिंपल एग्जांपल से समझते हैं. फॉर एग्जांपल अ फिक्स्ड डिपॉजिट, राइट? लेट अस से you have 50,000 of excess cash, correct? Now that you don't need this fund for the next 5 years, you decide to go to the bank and you decide to have a fixed deposit with the bank. And in return of that, the bank will pay interest on the same. Now, the usual interest rate on FD is around 5 to 7%. Currently, it's standing between 5.6 to 6.5. Now, this obviously, as you can see, you're going to get fixed return. The returns are going to be very less. If you see, if someone just wants to beat the inflation, let's say the average inflation rate is 6 to 7%, and these are the kind of returns you can expect from FD. So when you're investing in FD, you are doing nothing but just beating the inflation. So if the sole purpose of your is to beat the inflation without taking any risk, then fixed deposit is the way to go. Now, frankly, I do not suggest investing in fixed deposit because currently, even though the inflation may be 7%, but the kind of consumer spending that we are seeing and the kind of personal expenditure is increasing day by day, fixed deposit is not going to fulfill your need. It is just going to beat the general inflation. But trust me, the real inflation is increasing at a very exponentially high rate. Now, this is suitable for someone who is very, very risk averse, who is probably, really old, and he just wants to take care of his day-to-day requirements, correct? So now let us move to another form of investment, is basically the equity market, right? The stock market. Now, when we talk about investing in equities, it basically involves when you buy publicly listed shares like Reliance, HDFC Bank, Bajaj Finance, जिसमें आप लंबी अवधि के लिए इन्वेस्ट करते हो, ठीक है ना? आप कंपनी की ग्रोथ में निवेश करना चाहते हो, उसको हम कहते हैं इक्विटी इन्वेस्टमेंट. इन्वेस्टिंग इन इक्विटी इज वेरी सिमिलर टू इन्वेस्टिंग इन एनी बिजनेस. और जब आप बिजनेस में इन्वेस्ट करते हो तो यू आर एक्सपेक्टिंग हायर रिटर्न्स, और जब आप हायर रिटर्न्स एक्सपेक्ट करते हो, सो ऑब्वियसली यू आर गोइंग टू टेक हायर रिस्क. द रिटर्न्स एक्सपेक्टेड आर अराउंड 14 to 20%, एंड दीज आर अचीवेबल इफ यू आर इन्वेस्टिंग इन good companies which are in the high growth categories. But as you understand, as you read it, when you're expecting higher returns, you're also taking higher risk. But let me tell you one thing which should actually motivate you to start investing in equity market is, and I would also recommend you to watch a video by Alok Jain from Weekend Investing, where he has written a very beautiful article on equity investments, जहां पे उन्होंने कहा है कि अगर आपका tenure of period, राइट, अगर आपका जो इन्वेस्टमेंट है अगर वो लंबी अवधि के लिए, फॉर एग्जांपल अराउंड 25 years, देन द स्टॉक मार्केट इज एक्चुअली द लीस्ट रिस्की इन्वेस्टमेंट. सबसे कम वोलेटिलिटी आपको इक्विटी इन्वेस्टमेंट्स में मिलेगी, ठीक है? तो अगर आप लंबी अवधि के लिए निवेश करना चाहते हो तो मेरे हिसाब से स्टॉक मार्केट से बेहतरीन प्लेस है ही नहीं. यहाँ पे आपको रिटर्न्स भी अच्छे मिलेंगे, ठीक है? वोलेटिलिटी रहेगी लेकिन शॉर्ट टर्म में, ओवर अ लॉन्गर पीरियड ऑफ टाइम, इक्विटी इन्वेस्टमेंट्स आर रियली the most preferred ones with good returns with less volatility. And do not worry, I will also be sharing the link to Alok Jain's video in the description box, so you can obviously refer that. Let's move on to another investment option. Let us now understand about mutual funds. अब आप सभी को मालूम है म्यूचुअल फंड्स क्या होते हैं. म्यूचुअल फंड्स बेसिकली उनके लिए सूटेबल है जो डायरेक्टली मार्केट में निवेश नहीं कर सकते. They don't want to invest directly in the market, maybe due to lack of knowledge or lack of time, or it could be anything, right? So here what one basically does is that it's going to go to a mutual fund. Now, mutual funds are basically managed by a fund manager, right? Who has right knowledge about where to invest, how much to invest, and the other variables that come with equity market, right? And he's going to invest in equity on behalf of you, and he's going to charge you a fees for that. Correct. Mutual fund is basically less risky than direct investment in equity. Now, what usually happens is जब आप स्टॉक मार्केट में खुद निवेश करते हो, ठीक है, तो बहुत बार आप क्या करोगे, randomly कोई stocks में invest कर दोगे, और basically you may also end up investing based on tips. So mutual fund is obviously a better option than investing, through some tips or something. Another way of passively investing is index investing. आप क्या कर सकते हो, आप निफ्टी में निवेश कर सकते हो. निफ्टी में जब आप निवेश करोगे, when you invest in Nifty, you don't really have to pay a fees to the fund manager who's managing the fund, right? Here in this particular case, you are investing directly in the index fund, which could be Nifty, which could be Bank Nifty, any index fund, right? Here you can also expect a good returns of 12 to 15%, which is an average kind of return you should expect in a mutual fund. However, the returns can be higher. In case of some better performing mutual funds. One of the mutual funds that I am personally invested in is the Parag Parikh mutual fund, long-term fund. So that's a good investment, which I am basically invested in. So now let's move forward to another investment option which is available. So now let us learn about another investment option, which is real estate. So I hope पहले आपको सीखने बहुत मिल रहा है. You're getting everything in one video. So real estate involves basically transacting into buying and selling any commercial or non-commercial land. यहाँ पे आप क्या करते हो? Basically, you're dealing with commercial or non-commercial land, right? Now, typically, this would include transacting in sites, apartments, commercial buildings, right? And all of these options. Now, when we talk about real estate, right? Next question which you should have is basically, अगर मैं real estate में निवेश कर रहा हूँ, तो मेरे income sources क्या-क्या है? ठीक है? For example, जब आप stocks में निवेश करते हो, तो एक होता है capital appreciation और एक होता है अगर आपको वो कंपनी डिविडेंड दे रही है, ठीक है ना, तो ये सब ऑप्शंस होते हैं. उसी तरह रियल एस्टेट के अंदर भी दो ऑप्शन है आपके पास इनकम के. फर्स्ट इज रेंटल इनकम. फॉर एग्जांपल, आपने एक लैंड को खरीदा एंड नाउ यू आर गोइंग टू गिव इट ऑन रेंट, राइट? सो यू आर गोइंग टू गेट रेंटल इनकम, राइट? And another income, which is, you can call it, is capital appreciation of the investment amount, right? For example, how in equity markets, when we invest in a share like Reliance, let's say the Reliance share from 2000, it goes to 2400, 500, 600, something like that. So that is called what? A capital appreciation in your investment. Similarly is the case in real estate. Real estate के अंदर भी क्या होता है, समझो आपने कोई लैंड खरीदी है 20-25 लाख के अंदर, और अगर उसकी प्राइस में इंक्रीमेंट होता है तो उसे हम कहते हैं कैपिटल अप्रिसिएशन, ठीक है? बट द ओनली प्रॉब्लम विद रियल एस्टेट इज the liquidity issues, right? The amount of capital required firstly is higher, right? For example, if you want to buy a share of Reliance, you can basically invest 2500 and you can buy a share of Reliance. But take it with the example of real estate, like average investment की बात करूं तो 10-15 लाख तो लगता ही है, ठीक है ना? So the amount of investment required is higher. And even if you want to sell your land, right? Let's say you bought it and you want to sell it, you're not going to be able to sell it very easily, right? Because the amount required is higher. You will have to figure out at which you want to sell it, because in the stock market everything is very transparent, right? Here you will have to go to a valuer, right? You will have to understand the kind of demand that is there for the area, and probably then the valuer will tell you that अच्छा आपके जमीन का भाव अभी ये है, ठीक है? So here you are going to have the liquidity issue, right? The amount of investment required is higher, and even when you want to sell it, it's going to take a while. You cannot just click on your mobile that you want to sell the land and you'll be able to do that, right? So एक liquidity का issue आता है, ठीक है ना, real estate में. So now let us move on to another investment option. Now let's talk about another investment option, which is gold, which is obviously one of the most popular way of investing your money, right? So the traditional way of starting to invest in gold is very simple, by purchasing some physical gold coins, jewelry, bullions, and much more. However, if you want to explore the new way of investing in gold, then you can explore ETFs and gold funds and something like sovereign gold bond. Okay, now these have an edge over buying a gold physically, right? Because here, first of all, the transaction cost is very, very less compared to buying a physical gold. Further, one of the biggest advantages is that you don't really have to buy a gold and then physically store it. It is similar to buying a share. The gold will automatically be valued in your demat account, so you don't really have to go for all the difficulties that come up with storing a gold. And further, you're also going to get interest on your sovereign gold bond, and there are many more other advantages. I can actually do a different video altogether on sovereign gold bond. Let me know in the comment section if you want a different dedicated video on gold sovereign bond. So coming to the point, gold is obviously a very safe investment. It usually beats inflation, right, by a slight margin. We can also say it is a measurement of the inflation, right? So let us now again move forward to another investment option. So now that we have understood different type of investment options, starting from equity investments, mutual fund, fixed deposits, real estate, gold, now what we should also understand is the risk that comes up with every instrument that you are willing to invest in, right? So let's move forward and now understand the most important aspect of your investment, which is risk. Now, as we know, risk and return goes hand in hand. If the risk is higher, okay, so are the returns going to be. And if you are willing to take very less risk, then you should also expect very less or moderate returns, correct? So it depends on individual to individual as to what kind of temperament he has, and based on his temperament he can prefer to go with either a low risk investment, something like a FD or gold. Frankly speaking, FD does not make sense. It is actually very, very risky because there the money is not even beating the inflation, right? And when we talk about stock markets, I believe stock market is the least risky instrument. If you were to watch a video by Alok Jain where he talks about if you were to invest in the equity market for a period of 30 years, well, stock market is actually the least risky instrument among all the investment options which I give you, because over the longer run, the volatility is less compared to any other instrument. So if you are in the game for a long period of time, something like a long period of time, right? There is no definition of a long period of time, but if you're in the market for a longer run, something like 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, then stock market is actually the least risky instrument. In the shorter run, the stock market is obviously the most volatile of all, but in the longer run, this is one place where you're going to not just beat the inflation, you're also going to create wealth for you, and not just wealth, enormous wealth, correct? So let's move forward and understand the risk in terms of every particular investment options that we've discussed. So this is the riskometer for different investments. So when I talk about fixed deposits, obviously the least risky instrument. And when I talk about equity instruments, obviously the risk is increasing. So if you start from fixed deposits and then you go to equity, the risk is obviously going to increase. And further, the returns are obviously going to increase as well. Correct. So more the risk, more is going to be the return. So I hope you've understood both of them. And now that you've understood risk, return, different type of investment options that is applicable to you, that are available to you. So now let us conclude everything that we've understood over the last 20-25 minutes, right? First of all, talking about current scenario where personal expenditure, consumer expenditure is on a very rocketing speed, right? Let us know one thing, that investment is mandatory for survival, right? If you don't invest your money, well, you're going to have a very difficult time. So it's not just important to make money. Well, yes, making money is the most important thing. Second thing is to make sure that you invest that money so that this particular money does not deflate, right? It has to inflate with inflation. So make sure that you're investing your money so that you can beat inflation and probably create wealth for you. Also, before knowing your investment, you should also know your risk appetite. And if you're in the market for the longer run, I would suggest that equity mutual funds are the way to go. Diversification, again, is something that we are going to discuss in detail. Diversification simply means that what if I were to invest my 100 rupee in all the different assets depending upon my risk appetite? But again, that comes up with a lot of detailing. So we will be having a different video dedicated on diversification, and one of the most important thing, which is compounding, which is actually the eighth wonder of world. Now, I believe compounding does not just work for your money. It works even in your daily routine life. Just imagine somebody going to the gym for 6 months, then 1 year, then 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and you will see that slowly, his habit is bringing so much change in his personal development as well, right? Similarly, with money also, if you keep investing small amount each month, let's say even something like a 15-20% of your income, it may sound very less, saving something like a 10,000, 15,000 each month, but if it is saved over a longer period of time, it can create enormous wealth for you. And also one more thing I would like to say, that just saving is not going to do the thing for you. Just investing is not going to do the thing for you. Make sure you build a skill to make money, and investment, your savings, your further decisions to expand your horizon of investments, all will follow. So also focus on different ways to build a skill which can make money for you, and make sure that the money that you make, you're investing it at the right place, okay, as per your risk appetite. So with that note, we have come to an end on this video, which talks about investments, why you should invest, where you should invest, and why it is important. Well, rather, it is very important to invest your money, right? So I hope you liked this long video, and it's taken a lot of time for us to come up with this content. I have to thank Zerodha Varsity, which has helped me in making this entire content. I also have to thank Vipul, one of our learners, who helped me in clubbing all the content together. So yeah, I hope you really liked it. And if you really like the video, make sure you like the video, hit the subscribe button if you're not following us, and also leave on the comment section as to what would you like us to do in the next weekend, right? So we have to prepare from today for the next weekend, because it takes good amount of time to make the content, right? So again, thank you so much for being here. See you again on Monday. Thank you.